Good morning, Internet. Yeah, I'm late. I'm sorry. My husband and I split our time between Northern Michigan and Kentucky, and we are moving up to Northern Michigan permanently. So we just have to dip down to Kentucky to pick up some stuff this week, upcoming week. So um, time has been very short up here while we hustle around and get the cabin all sorted out to be gone for a week and, life stuff and all that good jazz. So I do apologize there was no Tuesday video. Did want to give you Thursday video. We are on chapter 5. It is quite short. Let's get to it. Within a short walk of Longbourn lived a family with whom the Bennets were particularly intimate. Sir William Lucas had been formerly in trade in Meryton, where he had made a tolerable fortune and risen to the honor of knighthood by an address to the king during his mayoralty. The distinction had perhaps felt too strongly. It had given him a disgust to his business and to his residence in a small market town, and quitting them both, he had removed with his family to a house about a mile from Meryton, denominated from that period Lucas Lodge, where he could think with pleasure of his own importance and, unshackled by business, occupy himself solely in being civil to all the world. Though elated by his rank, it did not render him supercilious. On the contrary, he was all attention to everybody. By nature inoffensive, friendly, and obliging, his presentation at St. James had made him courteous. Okay, so one thing I found interesting is either in an upcoming chapter or it was only for the movie/miniseries, Charlotte makes a mention that she's a burden to her family because she is 7 and 20. And now we have just learned that Mr. Lucas has money, has a home, and we're also going to learn in a couple of paragraphs that he has an heir. So Charlotte isn't really as destitute as it is impressed upon us. So it is curious to me why she would feel that way. And we can already tell that we'll also find out that Mrs. Bennet finds Charlotte to be not flighty, but a little too serious for her own good. So yeah, very curious. But we do find out about Sir William and Lady Lucas's temperament, and it was established in an earlier chapter that they are very friendly to people, but they rarely go out of their way to meet people. So this is, I guess, kind of a contradiction, because they were one of the first families to go and meet Bingley when he got to Netherfield. Lady Lucas was a very good kind of woman, not too clever to be a valuable neighbor to Mrs. Bennet. They had several children. The eldest of them, a sensible, intelligent young woman, was about 27 and was Elizabeth's intimate friend. That the Miss Lucases and the Miss Bennets should meet to talk over a ball was absolutely necessary, and the morning after the assembly brought the former to Longbourn to hear and to communicate. "You began the evening well," said Mrs. Bennet with civil self-command to Miss Lucas. "You were Mr. Bingley's first choice." "Yes, and he seemed to like his second better." "Oh, you mean Jane, I suppose, because he danced with her twice," which we know is one step towards engagement. "To be sure, he did seem as if he admired her. Indeed, I rather believe he did. I heard something about it, but I hardly know what. Something about a Mr. Robinson?" "Perhaps you mean that I overheard between him and Mr. Robinson. Did I not mention it to you? Mr. Robinson's asking him how he liked our Meryton assemblies, and whether he did not think there was such a great many pretty women in the room, and which he thought the prettiest. And his answering immediately to the last question, 'Oh, the eldest Miss Bennet.' Beyond a doubt, there cannot be two opinions of that point." "Upon my word! Well, that was very decided indeed." "And it does seem as if, but however, it may all come to nothing, you know. My overhearings were more to a purpose than yours, Eliza," said Charlotte. "Mr. Darcy is not so well worth listening to as his friends, is he? Poor Eliza, to be only just tolerable." And I kind of want to get that tattooed somewhere. I have obstinate, headstrong girl on my wrist. So barely tolerable would be another great tattoo I would like to place somewhere. So that's an idea for the future. "I beg you would not put into Lizzie's head to be vexed by his ill treatment, for he is such a disagreeable man, that it'd be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. Mrs. Long told me last night that he sat close to her for half an hour without once opening his lips." "Are you quite sure, ma'am? Is there not a little mistake?" said Jane. "I certainly saw Darcy speaking to her." There's Jane, always looking to positives of everybody. "Aye, because she asked him at last how he liked Netherfield, and he could not help answering her. But she said he seemed very angry at being spoken to." "Miss Bingley told me," said Jane, "that he never speaks much unless among his intimate acquaintances. With them he is remarkably agreeable." I do not believe a word of it, my dear. If he had been so very agreeable, he would have talked to Mrs. Long. But I can guess how it was. Everybody says that he ate up with pride, and I dare say he had heard somehow that Mrs. Long did not keep a carriage, and had come to the ball in the hack chaise. I do not mind that he is talking to Mrs. Long, said Miss Lucas, but I wish he had danced with Lizzie. Another time, Lizzie, said her mother, I would not dance with him if I were you. I believe, ma'am, I may safely promise you never to dance with him. His pride, said Miss Lucas, does not offend me so much as pride often does, because there is an excuse for it. One cannot wonder that so very fine a young man, with family, fortune, everything in his favor, should think highly proud of himself. If I may express it, he has a right to be proud. That is very true, replied Elizabeth, and I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. Okay, another great quote. Not worthy of being tattooed, but another great quote. Pride, observed Mary, who piqued herself upon the solidarity of her reflections, is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I have ever read, I am convinced it is very common indeed, that human nature is particularly prone to it, and there are very few of us who are not cherish a feeling of self-complacency on the score of some quality or another, real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us. If I were as rich as Mr. Darcy, cried a young Lucas, who came with his sisters, there's the heir, I should not care how proud I was. I would keep a pack of foxhounds and drink a bottle of wine every day. Then you would drink a great deal more than you ought, said Mrs. Bennet, and if I were to see you at it, I would take away your bottle directly. The boy protested that she should not, and she continued to declare she would, and the argument ended only with the visit. Okay, so very short chapter. Basically, it's just a breakdown session of the ball between the Lucases and the Bennets. We're not really learning anything new other than the Lucases do have an heir, and that doesn't really play any importance in the book. So there is that. Anyways, that is chapter 5. We will pick up at chapter 6. Thank you. Bye.